Hello, friends. Welcome to my channel. I am Ananda Rose, and today I have with me the beautiful Claire Johnson. Hello, Claire.
Hello.
How are you today?
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Plenty of
Yes,
lots of rest since I got back. So,
great. And if you're wondering what Claire's talking about, Claire has just got back from Egypt. And if you watch the channel regularly, you would know that we did Egypt's activation last Thursday. And what an activation that was. And we had to talk today because I felt the need to have Claire come online and talk with me about Egypt. A little bit about the activation. Stuff about the activation will be next week that we will put out some videos, but that's the plan. As of today, anything can happen, you know. But today's interview is really to talk about Claire's experience in Egypt, more from the perspective of what was practically done, how it led up to that trip to Egypt, and how it felt. And now that she's come back, how things are. What I'm really looking here in for us to share with you is to say, hey, if you're planning to go to Egypt and it is something that you're doing from an intuitive perspective, here's one perspective, and here's this experience, and what you can do that will enhance your experience. That's really what I was hoping to do with today's chat with Claire. So Claire, are we okay with that?
yeah, sounds good.
So I mean, hey, when you were in Egypt, I got to ask this question at the top. Did you feel like I need to pinch myself that I'm really here?
I mean, I did what I was told to do. I said, I am here. I am here. I am here. I have
Okay.
arrived.
So that was guidance, right? That was the guidance that you
Yeah.
got. Okay.
And it, I mean, it was, I don't know. It was a little surreal. But
Yeah.
it was a pretty nice and smooth process, getting from the plane to my car and then but took an hour to get to the hotel from there, but it was a little bit of an adjustment that first night. Yeah.
Right.
So
So let's go back. How did Egypt come to be in your space? How did that
sure.
idea even come there?
Yeah, so um one night I was working and it's a Saturday night. I often on my breaks I would listen to YouTube videos. And there was um a post on one of the channels I follow, and she was talking about her trip. She had just gotten back from Egypt, and she mentioned how when she was on her way to Egypt on the plane, her guides had told her that she was going to be leading groups of people to Egypt. And I knew immediately when she said that I was going to be one of those people. It was just a
Okay.
knowing and a calling. I just knew. And then, there was an application I had to fill out and everything. And that was pretty much how that went. What was kind of interesting, I mean, that might have been like May, I guess. I knew I wasn't going to be able to get the time off from work. Um, and I had very little, I would have had no more vacation because I had very few days off at the time. And when I did find out that I was, in fact, going to Egypt when it was confirmed, I was like, I knew I would have to quit my job. I wasn't sure when I was going to quit my job, but I knew I would have to quit it before I went to Egypt for me to be able to go to Egypt. And, you know, it was, I have to say, the whole thing, right around that time, my team of light, had been leading me to other places that I could at least drive um, to do work, heal the land, you know, I guess it was what you'd call it. But
Yes. Yes.
so I was kind of being pulled into these other places already. I mean, that all happened from like the May full moon to the June full moon. Um, and then there was a trip to Colorado that came up that was going to be a month prior to Egypt. And again, I think July 1st, I gave my notice at my job. And part of me too realized that that job, because it was not soul aligned for me at all. I mean, it was just something I had to pay my bills. But also, I realized that I had a secondary mission there at that job, um, perhaps to activate three other people.
Okay.
And my work, I realized at that point that my work there was done
Okay.
on that. And it felt like, you know what, this is a good point. This is a good stopping point. And I get my notice. And also, I had to ask my team for some help in paying for this trip. You know,
Okay.
I'm like, I don't have money for this. I was initially going to have to put it on credit cards, and they're like, don't worry about it, essentially. So, and it came through. It came through. They helped me find the money to pay for the trip. And so I did have to step into that unknown, though. I mean,
Yeah.
like, and trust, like, really trust that this was just, I have no job lined up. I have no, I just, I, and thank goodness I wasn't working prior to the trip because I needed the time to prepare for the journey in Egypt.
Right. Which brings me to the next question very nicely. Preparing, because it seemed like this trip wasn't just that you bought a ticket through this travel agent and you got on a plane and you went on this intrepid journey, or you were the intrepid traveler. It was very spiritually charged, is what I, for want of a different word. But it seemed like the group that was going were meeting regularly, doing meditation. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So I will say the trip was divinely guided um, by Alunia, who took us. Her guides, pretty much laid out the trip. And then the travel agency we worked with made it all happen. But in the month and a half leading up to the trip, we had Zoom calls. Everybody was on the Zoom call every 2 weeks. And we would, first, it was the physical body, then the mental body 2 weeks later, and then 2 weeks after that, emotional body, and then the spiritual body. So over the course of a month and a half, we had 4 Zoom calls, and we would talk about that and prepare for the trip and do meditations. And I mean, there was one in the very first call, we did a meditation and then to ask our bodies, what is it that you need from me? What is it that you need for this trip? And the response that I got, I had to check with my guides because it seems so weird, was cauliflower, parsley, oregano, and thyme.
Wow.
And then hiking, swimming, and water aerobics, and I was like, okay, I wrote it down. And then I confirmed with my team later, like, is this right? They're like, yeah. So I ate heroic amounts of cauliflower, parsley, thyme, and oregano. Um, and got my exercise in, So, I mean, these were important components. I mean, and because let me just tell you, the physical, the getting in and out of some of the sacred sites, and especially a pyramid, is an initiation in and of itself. I mean, it
Okay.
was taxing.
Okay. Yeah. I heard you say something when we had a conversation a few days ago. You said something about climbing ladders. So, what was that all about? Did you have to climb down a ladder to get into a pyramid or a temple?
Yes. One of the first things we went over was the anatomy of a pyramid, and kind of how that goes. I mean, we went into pyramids. There was the Osiris shaft, which is 80 meters down, and yeah, you had to climb a ladder like straight down.
Wow.
Um, yeah, which was, I have a bit of a fear of heights. I mean, I don't love heights. I wouldn't say like I'm totally afraid of them, but I hang on for dear life to a
Yeah.
ladder that I'm going 80 meters
Yeah. Yeah.
down.
Wow.
So yeah, and then in and out of the pyramids, I mean, there's some parts where you can walk, but I mean, you're going up an incline with wooden slats, And then other parts going down, I had to hunch over or climb down backwards, because like I would have I mean, it might be maybe 3 feet high,
Okay.
you know.
Okay. Wow. So definitely fitness is a thing if you're going to do a journey like
Oh,
that.
and there was a
Or
lot of crawling, knee pads and elbow pads. I mean,
okay, right.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Does everyone have to do that type of I suppose that type of tour?
I guess
Okay.
it just depends on
Yeah.
what I definitely essentially, from what I understand, the trip was there her guides were pretty much helping we're coming up with these are the things that need to happen. And then the travel agency, which they only do spiritual journeys.
Okay.
And they're called, and we can put the link in the description. It's
Yes.
called Unknown Egypt
Yeah.
Travel. And so they are the ones that make it happen,
Okay.
and the important thing to know too in Egypt is that it is we had private access to our sites, and which is very different from public access. In public access, you can't meditate in public. It's illegal to meditate in public. So even just closing your eyes is, they're going to tell you you need to go. So having private access is very important so that, you can do what you need to do in there, whether it's chanting, oming, um, you know,
Yeah.
meditating, speaking light language, which I did a lot of and very loudly at
Yeah.
times. You know, you need to be able to safely do the things you need to do. And
Mm.
because there are temple guardians there that have to go with the group and the sites.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, you don't want to just show up, and you don't want to be there for public access because
Right.
it's not the same. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Um, this is why I wanted us to talk because I felt that it's nice to get this out. If people really want to have that intrepid travel, it's one thing, but if you want to have something intuitive, I mean, you could have an intrepid journey anyway and be intuitive, but it's better to go with somebody who already knows, who knows the sites, who understands what to do where, so that you have that experience and you can express your intuition in the way that you feel guided to, right? Um, so my next question is, so what about the other things? Like, was the food good? The practical stuff. What was the environment like? Did you cope with the heat there, or what season are they in?
I mean, it was, I mean, the sun was out, full sun. It was, 90s, maybe got down to the 70s at night. There was a nice breeze, but you definitely want something to cover you up if you're out in the sun for extended periods of time.
Yeah,
Food was amazing. My group was in Cairo the entire time, and then so the first journey, they were in other places. So I and another component of this journey was I mean, we had the general idea of the places we were going during the trip, but there were extra things added or days were changed, but we never knew what we were doing until the night before or sometimes the
okay.
morning of. And that was to help us stay in the present moment. And also
Wow.
to allow for changes. So there was no planning because that wasn't something we needed to worry about. And this agency, they did a really nice job of making sure that like we didn't have to worry about checking in. Like that was taking somebody was there to meet us. The tipping, like we didn't have to worry about tipping. They handled all of that. Things so that our minds didn't have to be on, you know, money and things like
Yeah,
that we
yeah.
could
Oh,
just focus on our journey. And it was really helpful.
yeah, yeah. I mean, look, this is awesome. I know a lot of people. who say they've been to Egypt a few times, they will probably say, "Oh, we went and we did this, and that was great." That's not to say that doesn't work. The other way doesn't work. But what's really nice, what I was hearing really about this was you were just going, and all you were focusing on is that journey you were going to take in terms of intuition. And
Yep.
for me, that was the thing that stood out. And I think for me, that would suit me to go with somebody because I'm really divinely called to do this journey to Egypt, and so I'm just focusing on what I'm learning, what's activated for me, what downloads I'm getting, and so on. Because that would be the reason I'd go to Egypt. I've never felt called there. I mean, yes, I've been fascinated with the pyramids and all of that, but I've not felt called there for any other reason. Even right now, I mean, if I go there, I know that would be my intuition calling me to it. Because you can enjoy the benefits of all these other things too. This amazing place, but you can also enjoy the benefits of all of it. I was talking to a friend the other day who said if some of us are not feeling called to Egypt, it's because we've been there so many times, and perhaps in this time we don't have to do anything there. But I still have a feeling those of us that think that we're probably still going to end up going there. Just maybe
Yeah,
say, oh, I
maybe.
just want, yeah.
Another thing that I thought was incredibly beneficial for me personally, is I had no expectations for this trip other than being knocked on my ass. I mean, I pretty much figured that was a given and that I'd have homework to do when I got back. But, I kept my expectations just, I didn't have any because I mean, I didn't know. I didn't know what to expect. And I think that's important to not go into a journey like this if you're feeling called, because if you have expectations of what it's going to look like, I'd mentioned before being slapped across the face or knocked on your behind, with a spiritual experience, you're going to miss it because there was so much, so many subtle things that had I been pigeonholed into thinking it was going to look like this or it was going to look like that I would have missed so many amazing things that happened that I'm still processing. And I'm like,
Okay.
what? You know, um, and, and I could talk more about that too, but it's what some of those examples were, but it's incredibly important, I believe, to have no expectations, because you have no idea what's gonna happen day to day, and it just it was amazing. It was amazing, and I'm still, like I said, there's still things, and I'm like, man, I know they're just gonna keep popping in my head
Yes,
as I
and
integrate the experience.
yeah, we spoke about some of those experiences off air the other day, and we will be sharing that with everybody in the week or so to come. And that's something everyone can expect to hear about. We felt it was very important to share some specific experiences, and Claire will do some light language for us with those experiences so that whatever else she's activating others for, because we did the Egypt activation. It's almost like an extension of Egypt's activation. Even this interview is an extension of that activation. So, Claire, I just want to say you look like you were in a trance in the Egypt activation.
I was definitely, I couldn't, I was, I feel like I was my own energy vortex. Like
Yeah, yeah.
I could not sit still. It was just impossible. Or I was swaying back and forth. I'm sure it was distracting.
No, no, wasn't distracting for us at all. It was acceptable. We were okay with it. We anything can happen here, as you know, we say these things and so on.
Sure.
And at the end of the day, what I want to say about that is I just loved how real you were in the activation, because that was what you were feeling in that moment and thinking and saying, and that was how it went. And I really, really appreciate that. Um, so Would you believe I forgot my question? But I have been receiving so many downloads as we're doing this conversation. We'll talk about them afterwards.
Do you want me to talk a little bit about these little subtle, like just a couple of examples? I mean, I can do
Well,
that a little bit
yes, yes, you can. Please tell us.
without going into like the stuff that we'll talk about next week. But
Yes, yes.
so some of the examples, so when we got to the Sphinx, you know, there were some people who were definitely getting that like big, you know, hit of spiritual something. You know, I felt some emotion come up and I was crying a little bit, but we were sitting there. I'm like, like I know, not really feeling anything here. I'm not getting
Okay.
any messages from the Sphinx, you know. I'm like, but it's like I'm feeling called to stand up and walk around the Sphinx, and that's what I did. And I walked past this one area, and then the next little spot, I felt this. It was like warm magnetic pull
Okay.
into this space. And I was like, and I asked my team, is this the spot? And they said yes. My yeses come through. My team and I pretty much are yes and no. Um, but I get crown activations. And so when it's a yes. And so I I went and I sat down, you know. I was there was a beautiful soul who's on our trip who I felt guided to give a light language, personal light language message to. And in that instance, I felt a pull in my solar plexus, just like pulling me towards them, you know. Um, there were a couple of instances where I walked past an area and I got that same fluttering in between my collarbones. Um, when we walked past an area of the pyramid and I wanted to go back, but then we never went back to that space. But, you know, going back, you know, next time that happens, I'm going to stop when I feel that because those parts of that particular pyramid, and it happened in two different places, I feel like they were calling to me to stop, but we were doing a walking meditation. So I just kept going. Um, and then, the you know, when I was in the Queen's chamber, when it was, you know, I went in there and I was like, I'm not really feeling it in here, you know, and I was about to leave, but then something's like, you should go in that corner, that weird corner that has this indentation in the floor. Like, okay. I mean, it was just a thought that came to my mind. And it's, even though I was like, think I'm going to leave. When that thought came into my head, I'm like, all right, I'll go into this corner, the one place that I haven't been to. And then that's when all these downloads started coming in, light language downloads. And I'm like, okay, clearly this was the corner. You know, it's just little things like that, just being open to receiving the messages or the guidance, however it's going to come. And it may be a pull in your solar plexus. It may be a pull in your heart. It may be warm energy. You might get tingles. You might get flutters. You may just any number of things that can happen, but you just have to be receptive to it
Yeah.
and just, you know, go into it quiet, you know, without those expectations. And, you know, I'm like, I still missed a couple of things. But what was interesting is some of those flutters I felt, they got passed to somebody else, you know. So since I didn't take, you know, the cue, like somebody else got the call and was there to do whatever needed to be done there, you know.
Wow.
So
So do you think you were clearing some things in Egypt, not for yourself personally, but for I don't know, for the land, for the energy, for the space? Do you think you were clearing too?
I was there's some things I know that have been, you know, revealed since then. I mean, I don't I don't know everything I was doing. I know that I was channeling certain beings, the energies of certain beings that had messages that were to be delivered at that time. You know, that I was, you know, in a past life
Yeah.
infused with those energies to hold
Yeah.
on to
Okay.
until now currently, you know. It's and I could feel it. I could feel I've figured out who some of those beings are since then,
Yeah.
based on just gut feelings I had or the location we were at. And um I still don't know. I still don't know like what I was doing
Okay.
exactly. I just know that it was affecting people there for sure. Because I would get the feedback from my the other members of the journey, like,
Okay.
like that they really could feel, or it was very powerful, even though
Mm.
I couldn't translate the messages, like that I was that they could feel it, or it was really creating dissonance in them, and like
Mm.
it just
Yeah.
but then they
Yeah.
just sat with it and went inward and just like let it process,
Yeah. Yeah.
because of we learned that in one of our meetings prior to that, people are going to activate you and really rub you the wrong way. They're going to activate you in not pleasant ways. And that's not a bad thing, that it's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
reflection. It's just something in you that needs to be activated. It doesn't have anything to do with the person. It's,
Yeah.
and I was activating people left and right,
Wow,
you
that's
know.
awesome. It's imagine to have your come into that sort of knowingness and space, whatever that is, even if you can't put it in words in English, but knowing that you have that ability, that capability, that is a side of you didn't know existed, and here you are. You might have
What was
suspected it,
so
but you experienced it there, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And what was so amazing is that there were two instances I'll talk about next week. Where where there were messages for the group and actually messages for all the light workers. So we can go into that next week. But the I did actually for the first time get a translation of I was like I could do light language English, but I only spoke it in light language and I didn't tell the group what the message was. But as we were going through the journey, I would hear uh some of the other people
Wow.
recite plays parts of that message that I had delivered. And I was like, oh, yes, this is
Okay.
so important. Like, it's
Yeah.
just, and that to know that their soul received the message because they
Yeah.
were reciting the message and they didn't
Yeah.
even know it. It was pretty amazing.
So were they reciting it in English? They were like
Yeah.
giving you the English translation of it. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so it's really good, right? Because often when we do light language and you get this download of what that was, it's better for somebody else to come out and say that interpretation. I feel, and maybe I'm connected to that Christian concept of it. If you do light language, don't be the interpreter. Let it, and also don't speak your light language or speaking in tongues unless you know there's an interpreter there. That was the Apostle Paul in the Bible saying that. But when you get the download of what that means, and somebody else echoes that in a roundabout way, it's almost like you hearing that advice was good from the Bible. But I mean, we no longer live by that because we do give our interpretations, but that's so good a confirmation for you because it sort of makes you build up your confidence that what you're hearing or interpreting in English is on point. It just comes,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, it just comes back to source, right? It just comes back to the guides, knowing that they will never let us down. That when they say something, it's happening. And so quite often when you get downloads from the guides, maybe if you speak it, those that hear it may not be ready to receive it. But maybe if somebody else said it, the receptivity is better to that. I don't know, the tone of the voice or the person or whatever, right? Or it's maybe not for the time. So it's really good that you had that.
Yeah. And I think the beauty of light language is that because when I was first exposed to light language, I didn't get a translation.
Yeah.
They didn't have one. And I think the beauty of it is that it bypasses all of our attachments to words, whether they be positive or negative. Somebody uses the word God, and then somebody just stops listening.
Yes.
Somebody says, love, and then they just stop, because now they have issues with love. They've never felt love. And so love doesn't even exist. So they hear the word love and then they're like,
Mm-hmm.
they stop listening. The beauty of light language is it bypasses all those attachments, all of that, and it keeps us from being able to separate which ultimately we're one unity consciousness, right? And
Yeah.
separation is the opposite of that. So light language just bypasses that ability that we have to separate ourselves and say that
Yeah.
we're different. And your soul does receive the message. And I will give one beautiful example next week of like how I witnessed that happen and in one of my experiences there, because it was just, I mean, I just got so much confirmation and of things that, you know, I'm not making this up, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. I really love how you explained that the beauty of light language, what it does, because I have taught that to many people, but not in the way you've expressed it. I often say to people in simple words, like the reason why light language, because people have inhibitions about them, people have prejudices against light language, right? They think it sounds weird, so they don't want to be heard to be saying it or whatever. Even people that are Pentecostal happy clappy Christians I know don't want to do speaking in tongues because it makes them look weird, and it's like that one gift that they of the spirit that they don't want to exercise. But this is what it does. This is the key. It bypasses it. Basically, the ego does not get involved because that is where our inhibitions come from, because of all the programming we've had in the third dimensional world. And it just bypasses the ego. It bypasses doubt, fear, worry, all of those things. If you want something, if you are praying for something, if you are asking the universe for something, do it in light language, because all our personal inhibitions fall away, because the mind can't understand that. The ego cannot interpret that, right? Unless you're getting an interpretation, but the ego doesn't know. Well, the ego cannot control what's going to come out of the mouth and how the soul's going to receive that. Even speaking to your guides, it is better to speak to them in your light language than it is to speak in English, because when you speak in English, already your doubt and fear and all of that comes into it, or whatever your language is that you speak in every day, whether it's English, Afrikaans, French, whatever, Spanish, right? But and this I'm saying more to our audience because I know that Claire, you understand it. But I just took the opportunity to express this because that's what light language is doing. And it is our soul's language. The soul has so many different languages because we've lived on this earth so many times. We've come here, we've incarnated here, we've been on on other planets, in other galaxies. Surely we had a language. Even the toning is a language, even the whispering is a language, even a sound that you make is a language, because maybe you were a creature on another planet and it had a sound. So sorry, that was my
Well,
tirade.
no, that's great. I do, to be fair, don't want to take full credit for my explanation. I feel like it's a mashup between something I heard Sarah Landon and the Council. Like, I mean, I added my own twist on it, but I
No, but I
believe that
like your
was I.
twist. I like your
Yeah,
twist.
but
And Sarah Landon just has such a beautiful way to express things, doesn't she? She's such an angel. Gosh, she's such an amazing lady.
absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I remember hearing her explain light language somewhere, and then I was like, "Oh, that's such a great way." And then now I've just probably changed it up a little bit with my own twist.
Yeah,
Like it's,
yeah.
yeah.
It was perfect. It was perfect. And I really feel anybody who does not want to take that journey to be open to taking it, because everyone has it. Some of us are doing it on the planet, but everyone has it. And it's our receptivity. It's going to be the key to many things for the transformation process, or it is the key to many things for the transformation process, because we'll be able to communicate in ways. Imagine using your light language in a situation where you might be feeling like you can't speak your truth, and then everybody gets it after that in everything.
And
Mm.
light language can be singing too.
Yeah.
It's like I can tell you so many times in this journey where it has been where, oming would start, but then there were some angels in there, and I can solely consider that light language, just there. And there were times where I don't even know what I was doing sometimes. My range and my voice was so low to so high, and then sometimes light language is a singing version, and then, but even just the tones, like the frequencies that some of the people were emitting, I'm like, I consider that to be light language in and of itself, even if there are no
Yeah.
words. It just was the tone or the frequency that was coming out was just angelic, for
It's
sure.
amazing. It's amazing to hear what you're saying because it's just saying how we are getting more in tune with our intuitive self. But in getting more in tune with our intuitive self, we're also getting more in tune with our galactic selves. Because, not cells, it sounded like cells, it's selves, galactic selves, our galactic selves.
A little bit
And
of both, actually.
sorry,
Probably a little bit of both.
a little bit of both,
Cells
yes,
and selves.
cells and selves. And yeah, so I'm just like, I love it. I love what you're saying about the language. It's turned out to be more about light language suddenly than it is about Egypt. But Claire, you were preparing
Hey,
for
we
this
just
with
go
your
where
light
we go.
language. Yeah, you were preparing, right? This all the journey for the last 6 months in your world was you coming into that preparation,
Yeah.
and our connection was the light language. It was the light language, wasn't it? We kind of started off with the light language because we had a session from my Etsy store that you signed that you bought, and this is
Yeah.
how we
And
kind
then
of took.
that first session, eh, yeah.
Yeah. So did
And
you?
didn't I mention in our first session that I was going to Egypt? And you were like,
Yeah. Yes, I
I think it
was.
was. You were like,
Yeah. I thought, oh, I think I found my Egypt
you were
lady.
getting downloads about it, and you were like, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, but you held off for a week before mentioning it. You were like, I
No,
was like, okay, cool.
yeah, I couldn't mention it. And when I spoke with you the
I'll just
first
wait.
time, sorry, we just had a bit of delay. Hmm. Are you there, Claire?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Am I
yeah. Yeah, no, you
said
were
my
just
internet
delayed, so I
connections?
just
Am I
kind of
still there?
went. Yes, you're here. You're back.
Okay.
You're back. Sorry, I thought you were
I'm
saying
unstable
something.
according to my computer.
Yeah, yeah. And of course you're in the place where there was a lot of devastation with the hurricane,
Yeah.
right? Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. I hope it's all good now in where you are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, some people just got power back, but yeah, lots of tree cleanup. It's like a
Yeah,
lot of trucks from
yeah.
not here that are cleaning up the devastation and the trees and stuff. But,
Okay. Okay. Just writing notes for us for afterwards. We're going to talk about some stuff. So, Claire, is there anything else you want to tell me about Egypt and light language before we say goodbye to everyone?
um, really quick, one funny story that I think kind of goes along with the line of those, along the lines of that, the expectations, the topic of expectations, having no expectations. One of the one of the experiences I had, which is a very intense one, at the at at the end of one part of an experience, the energy was so intense for me that I put my hand on the wall and one on my stomach and I doubled over. I thought I was going to throw up, um, and I shouted throughout this place. So a few days later, one of the ladies on the journey, she said, "Oh, I want to tell you about this uh, experience I had." She said, "My guides told me before the trip, a month or two before, that she was going to have a holy shit moment on this journey in Egypt." And her thought was like, "Oh wow, I'm going to get knocked on my behind, I'm going to I'm something crazy is going to happen." And then I said that in that experience, and she realized in that moment that that was her holy shit experience.
Oh,
And
wow.
she just thought it was hilarious. She's just smiling ear to ear. And she told me that. And I just thought that was hilarious. I said, that's so funny. That's your guides having a sense of humor.
They
You
do.
know, she thought a holy shit moment was going to be, something completely different than what it was when it was in fact just me yelling, shouting,
Wow.
holy shit after I thought I was going to throw up.
Yeah.
And how funny. It's like if so don't pigeonhole yourself, like be open because it can look like anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not all serious, right? It's not all
Right.
serious.
It's not all serious.
Yeah. Have fun with it. Have fun with it.
Absolutely.
Claire, there will be many people watching and listening to this video about your experience in Egypt. Do you want to sign out with a light language message?
I knew that's what you were about to ask. Let's do it. Let's do it. We
Let's
can
do
do it
it.
real quick. We still got a couple minutes. All right. Just remember, everybody, keep your open heart space. Ihramatassata kiana haranmata siana koro kotiarkieta kasikariena nata maniata. Isto koro koto kiana etiama sitiarete koma. Istiama tisiana etiana kiata tasiamata. Ihranda tisikaretisiama titikoma hiena tasati. Sitä batisia tahera atasamatiana nakanamatiana hasat kiera tatsianta ta huoma dasetatia pata. Eto como to sokoliara hits, ti tamas ti si fata sita tiga sita to ke ti amasatiana I fata sidana tiana si ti amata si ti kiana ta ti ti si ti kiata ta satiana masiata si soto kiana te sia ti amati siana si fata kiana matata sidana. Thank you.
Mhm.
That sounded
Mhm.
very playful.
I thought so too. I thought it was very playful. Just a lovely message of love and playfulness and ease and comfort. And, we are the darlings of our universe. Remember that. Don't forget that. And we choose, and our guides are so in love with us. And they're funny and, they play tricks. I know mine play tricks on me. And then I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Claire. You've done so
Yes.
much for the planet. You have done so much for the planet. Even this meeting with me is doing something for the planet. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. All of these chats we've been having, man. Who knew?
Who
I wouldn't
knew?
have
Who
guessed.
knew that we would be going on this journey? Really interesting. And I just love how the universe brings us together, like through this person, through that, watching that person think, oh, you're finding that person. And oh, right, I need to maybe get some of that person's activations that they offer or whatever, and then we end up here. You're in Egypt, and we are on air with you. So
Right?
amazing,
I
and
don't
now
know. It's pretty
and now
crazy.
talking about it. Oh, well,
Pretty
friends,
wild.
thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Claire. Thank you for eternal thanks for everything that you're doing for humanity. You have no idea how big this is.
You don't.
And maybe it's good we don't because we might get a bit frightened if we do, and then we'll think, oh, I can't do that again. You know?
I'd have to agree. I'd have to
Yeah,
agree.
yeah.
It's probably better.
So thank you everyone for watching. We'll catch you next time here on Ananda Rose, and I will, yeah, just looking forward to having more conversation with Claire next week. That's going to be a delightful thing, getting light language transmissions with those experiences, and we're going to activate. We are being activated through these things, and I hope that when you watch them, that you're open to whatever it is that the universe, that your guidance, that your team and spirit are wanting to bring forward for you through those transmissions. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone. Namaste. Catch you next time.